I always tell people show up in your life, show up at events, whatever. Like you don't have to show up and do stuff, just show up. That's the most important thing that I think that people always think in their minds. If they show up, wherever they're showing up, they have to show up and be the star. No, just show up, just be in the room and be present.
Welcome to Take a Beat, a podcast dedicated to those who are wanting to hit pause on the hustle, get clear in your direction, and head toward the life that you envision. Today's episode explores the idea of reinvention and how to reinvent yourself after a big life transition, like retirement. Typically a cause for celebration, retirement can also be a time of confusion once the structure and routine of a career or job is gone. Just ask Nick Shelton, who, after retiring early at 49 to pursue his dream of enjoying an endless summer, quickly realized that a perpetual vacation wasn't what he imagined it to be. Feeling lost and invisible, Nick began a reinvention process to help stabilize himself in his new life by disengaging from his old identity pre-retirement and then creating a new one. In this episode, Nick shares the steps he took and now helps others with. He also explains how a new sense of purpose began to reveal itself to him through this process and is now his North Star, as he calls it, and helps him to get out of bed every morning. Take a listen to hear more. Thanks for being here today, Nick. I really appreciate it. And I know that you have a story of reinvention after retiring early at 49 and hitting kind of like a crossroads at that point, feeling lost or lacking in purpose. I guess to start off, what was that like for you to retire and then discover that it wasn't necessarily what you thought it would be?
Right. Yeah. It was one of those things where I look at it like kind of like if you were an Olympic athlete or something and you've trained your whole life for this one thing, then you go to the Olympics and then you win, and then they say, okay, now you're aged out or whatever now. You're not going back to another Olympics. And then you say, well, that's all I know.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I've all only done that. And for my career, everyone, well, maybe not everyone, but most people dream of, oh man, it'll be like endless summer when I was a kid. I'll be able to just do anything.
Yeah.
But you're not used to just being able to just do anything. We're used to some kind of structure. So first it was, for me, it was the like a little vacation, that vacation period, and that lasts about 9 months. Moved to Mexico
Nice.
and said, I'll just be down. I'll get on boats, have some margaritas, hang out. But after several months of that, it didn't even take 9 months of that to say, okay, well, I need to actually do something because I'm used to achieving, and plus my identity was wrapped up in, so that first phase of life, that achievement phase, it's like what you do and how well you do it, that that was my identity. And then when that's taken away, or I separate from that, then now it's like, well, now I'm just some guy. I felt like I had a bunch of currency that was no longer accepted.
Mm.
And one of the interesting parts about that also was, so people would say, well, was your family concerned? Were your friends concerned? And it's like, nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. Everyone thought that I was fine because, I just came off this big victory that I retired at 49. So it was like, oh, yes, we want to do that.
Right.
And it's really hard to say when everyone's celebrating you, it's really hard to say, hey, there's something wrong. I have a problem. I need help. When I felt like I was like fading away, like I was becoming invisible and like I was something and now I was just floating.
Well, I guess how did you start to notice, or what were the things that you started to notice that were maybe something was off?
Well, I'm trying to think of a specific thing that I noticed. I know that, you know, all through my career, I had like a North Star to orient to a mission. And then when I was just, when I didn't have that anymore, I was just thinking, well, I can do anything, but it's not, what am I doing?
Mhm.
Who am I? Who is this new person? And so I was just kind of confused. And I know that a lot of people say, well, I would have plenty of things to do. And there's plenty of things to do, yes. But you have to try to figure out, well, where do I fit into this? I know I was just laying in bed one day and I felt like I was fading away. And I said, oh man, if only I had like a reset button I could hit. And I saw somebody had said, I saw some video or something that somebody said, in another life, I'd like to do this. And then I started thinking about that and I said, oh, in another life, maybe, I'm still very much alive, but the previous me is not really necessarily here. So maybe another life could start right now. I could start my other life because I was thinking that first phase, like I was given that life, but I said, well, what if I could just choose? What if I could choose my life from this point and just have like a whole brand new life? So that kicked off that spark.
That's pretty cool. It's like a gift of, like you said, now you get to choose what you want to do or have more choice in the matter, so to speak.
Yes. So I look at it like a star athlete.
Mhm.
The spotlight is the athlete out there, but then there's the back office of the sports team.
Mhm.
And nobody says, "Oh man, I want to grow up and be in the back office on the sports team and make some decisions and people will come to me for advice." People want to be out there,
Right.
and that's what society tells us. Yeah, you got to be the spotlight person. And not saying that you can't. So somebody in the back office, I'm sure they have a couple of good ones left in them where they could go out, but we need you more back here.
Yeah.
And so I had to realize, okay, maybe instead of the achievement role, more of a relationship role in like what I mean to my family, friends, and my community, and more of a mentor thing. And so now my victories could come from other people's successes. I succeed through them versus doing it myself. And for the reinvention of myself, I broke it down into steps because I'm a process guy. And we can get into that when you're ready.
Well, I think that's a good place to then what did you do in that moment when you had that realization of like now could be my other life? What were some of the initial things you started to do?
Right. So I got excited about the possibilities. And I said, okay, well, if I can just be whatever, there's nothing saying that I have to, all of the stuff that I have built up as me, that I have to keep bringing that forward. So I started off with, so step one, an audit, and not the scary audit, the IRS audit, just the personal audit, just a general audit on everything, because in order to be able to change or dial something in, you need to know what your baseline is, what you're working with. So I would, and I'm not just talking about your finances. I'm talking about just like just everything, your day to day, what you do. So I started looking at, uh, so what would I like to take forward with this new me, and then what would I like to leave behind? So we're going to take the stuff that we want to bring along, then all the stuff that I built up over the years for that first phase that I don't need anymore, that's not going to apply, I can leave that behind. This is also a good time to revisit some of the things when we're achieving so much. There's a lot of things we leave behind that we used to love and we just forget about it. So, for example, when I was in high school, I used to write poetry all the time. And then after that, I never wrote poetry again. And maybe it's because I was busy or maybe I was just too cool. I don't know. But I
Which is
said,
cool.
let's revisit that because there might be something there. I used to want to be a chef when I was 10. Let's revisit that. So I'm bringing some of these things from the past back that I got too busy or sidetracked for, and let's revisit some of that because I might want some of that to be part of this new me. And not saying that it has to be, but we can just revisit it just in case. And then we're gonna do the audit to see where we're at, what we're working with, and then the next step would be to we honor and release the previous us.
Yeah.
So what that looks like for me is, so I wrote a letter out to myself saying, I acknowledge the what you did, great job, and I forgive myself for, all the slip ups. We learned a lot. And then I said, well, now I'm taking over now. We love you. You're great. But now it's time for you to go. New me's coming in, Nick 2.0. And then I sign it off with love and then do like a bowl burning ceremony where we light that letter on fire, release that. And now we're going to take that what we got from that audit, the good stuff, and then so the next step would be to, like, we're writing a movie screenplay or something. We're developing a character. So maybe before I was a morning person. Maybe I don't want to be a morning person anymore. Maybe I want to be a night person. Let me write that down because nobody says I have to be a morning person forever. I can just make a decision and say, well, this character, this me is not. This character is a night person. And then what do I eat? I don't have to eat the same stuff. I can listen to different music. And so I can just develop ideally, what characteristics would I want? So I'll put all that down. And then, once you have this new version of you down, then the next step is to make it stick because the old version of you is still going to try to come back. But I'm going to pause because you may have some questions about this
Yeah.
first section.
Well, I think I mean, it definitely sounds like you took like an outsider higher perspective on things. You really to do the audit and then to say goodbye to that old version. And I like what you said about maybe revisiting things that you used to do just for the sake of doing them because they were enjoyable and not because there was any achievement element to it or you weren't going to get anything out of it potentially other than the enjoyment aspect of it.
Right. Yeah, I talk about finding your purpose, but it's more like we're going to let our purpose be revealed through alignment. But we have to remember, I used to love some of these things. Some I might try and not, it might not have that same magic, and some things might have it. And then we can go, okay, I'm going to bring this back in, but that doesn't mean that it has to be, you have to commit to it forever. Now I have to be a chef. It could just be, I might try it for 3 months and then say, okay, I'm good, and I'll let that go. So this is just a part for exploration of this new chapter. And so for once we have an idea, the baseline of the new version of ourselves, how to try to make that stick is, and these can be adjusted, but I have the defaults, and I always tell people to take a dance class, a cooking class, and a language class. And then in this, you are introducing yourself as this new person. So you're not like, I used to be this. When you show up, and these are all things that you can't really hide and sit around. You're forced to engage with people because it's into, the dance class, you're touching someone, you're dancing, and then the language class, you're butchering a language with other people, and then the cooking class, you're burning your souffle with somebody, and you're interacting with people, and then they're going to be engaging and talking with you, and now you're going to present this new you to them, and that's all they know. They don't know anything about your past. All they know is this new version of you. And so, and during this time, you're going to be, because you can say, well, I don't want to make dance friends or something like that. But it's not about that. It's just about introducing the new you. And you're going to be putting your interests out, what you feel are your interests out there. People ask me, well, how do I introduce myself? Because I would introduce myself as my title before. But now, how do I introduce myself? And I would say, this is what I'm working on right now.
All right.
I'm Nick Shelton. I'm working on a beekeeping project at the moment, something like that. So I talk about what I'm working on, what some of the main interests that I'm exploring.
Okay.
And I don't have to be an expert. I just say I'm working on it. I'm trying to learn. And they might not know anything about that. They might know something about it and talk to you, or they might say, oh, I have a cousin that is also into that. And then you're broadening your new network and exploring. And once again, you don't have to, that doesn't mean you have to be a beekeeper forever now. You're just learning about it. And these could be, opening doors to your interests. So it could be, kayaking, could be, I'm working on learning to kayak. I'm taking sailing lessons. I'm working on getting my pilot's license, just things like that. So that's how they know you. That's Nick. He is working on getting his pilot's license.
Gotcha. So, just to recount what we've got so far in terms of the process, first, it's doing the personal audit, what you want to take with you, what you want to leave behind, and then honoring and releasing the old version of you. Then you want to start to develop your new character and the characteristics that you want to embody. And to help make that stick, you're introducing yourself to others as this new version of yourself. Is there anything that happens next?
So then we're also going to do environmental curation. So the whatever it is in your immediate home environment, we always have to also have to kind of dial that into whatever this new you is, because if the new you is eating much healthier than the other you, and but you have a bunch of donuts and stuff around the house, then you clean that up. The easiest way to do this is if you moved, like I moved when I retired, I moved to Mexico, and then I moved back because the wife didn't like Mexico. And but moved back, and also in Mexico, I was like, what am I doing? So anyway, the point is, coming back after that move, we're in a completely different place now. And so the old home, that's gone. We're in a different home, and the environment of this home is curated to this new version. And I'm not saying that everyone can just has the luxury to just be able to do that, but you could just change some things here and there around.
Maybe even like moving your furniture or painting or doing something maybe to symbolize things are changing.
Yes. Yeah, you could do it. I'm going to do an accent wall. I've never had an accent wall. Do one of those. And yeah, you could, rearrange, and yeah, just these little things like that kind of help. And then when you're in this new mode and you are going out, exposing yourself to some new people, new experiences, and trying these new things, saying, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in this, then you're going to meet these new people that were not in your former circle. And you can still, people say, do I have to give up all the people that I know? No, you can still talk to them. But with these new connections, you're going to learn what their like hobbies and interests are. And so through this, it's going to kind of align you more and reveal more that you can be doing. And so one of the questions at this point that people ask is, well, so for me, I needed a reason to get out of bed in the morning. There's a revelation I had. I said, I can't really determine what kind of day I have, but I can absolutely make sure somebody else has an outstanding day. And so one day I was just sitting around and I said, do angels exist? And not even in a religious way, but just, do angels exist? And if they do, how do I know that I'm not one? And I said, well, maybe I can do miracles. I just can't do them for me or anyone I know. It has to be for a stranger. So I just started going out, and when I'd wake up, I'd say, I'm going to make someone's day today. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm just going to go out and see what presents itself. And so that, for me, just these little things, I'll give examples of small things and big things. So little things, sometimes people just need someone to listen to them, something as simple as that, or see them. So I always talk about, like, I used to be a sandwich artist at Subway many years ago. Also, I go to Chipotle a lot, and I remember that when people would come in when I was working there, they'd treat you like a robot. They'd just say, give me this, this, this. And I was like, they don't even see us as people. And so when I go in and I pause and would say, what can I get started for you? I say, no, how are you? And I'm like genuinely asking and concerned, and I wait for them to answer. And even, people in line behind me are like, come on, but I actually really engage with them and see them and, please and thank you and all that. And then I see them, each person, as I go down the line. And the same if I have like a waiter or a waitress, I see them and sometimes people haven't been seen in a long time. So it can be little things like that. It could be, maybe getting somebody, paying for the coffee of the next person, getting someone's gas. And then there's higher price things. There was a time I had never been on a yacht before, and I said, what would that be like? I'd like to be on a yacht. And then so I was like, I'm chartering a yacht. And then I went to the mall and I said, let's find some strangers that would like to go on a yacht. And I said, I have a yacht. And I think this was like on a Wednesday. I said, Saturday, I have a yacht. Would you like to go on the yacht? I'm getting people because I would like that experience. I'm not just going to be there by myself on there with a can of Pringles or something, No, I just get some people. So I brought a bunch of I had some friends, yes, but then some strangers on the yacht so we could share that experience, share that moment. And and there's one person on there I remembered said, this is the best day of my life. And I was like, oh, I got to be here. I got to be a part of that. And I'm sure they've had a better day of their life since, maybe.
I'm sure
But
they remember that one though.
yes, but they remember it. And so it can be as simple as just listening to somebody and recognizing, seeing them, or it could be, grandiose like that. But for me, I love that. So that's one of my passions. And then also on the kind of the same line, I'm a mentor to several people. And when they come to me and ask for like, oh, I'm working on this, and then I say, well, did you try this? And then they try it and it works. And they come back there excited. I'm like, yes. And so I'm succeeding through their success. And so that's where I'm getting it from. So it doesn't have to be me focused. It's like, what can I do out there? So I'm getting my victories now instead of my own achievement. I'm getting victories through seeing, shining some light, getting some other people going. And so that's my personal purpose that's getting me out of bed each day at the moment.
And it sounds like it like you said, it revealed itself to you along those steps that you were taking.
Yes. And there's still plenty of, hobbies along the way. So it's not like that's it. That's all I do. I still show up at places. I speak and I I'm curious about, in this endless summer that I have,
Right.
like curious on like, well, what would that be like? And I might try something like, oh, maybe I'm a guitar guy. And then, I'll get the guitar and they're like, nope, that's not going to be it. Or, I've seen people bird watching, and so it's like, let's try bird watching. That might be cool. Nope. It was cool for like a week. And
Yeah.
then I got as a gift because people say, well, now that you're retired, I got a wood carving, a wood whittling set. And so I, sit on the porch with my block of wood and then carve a duck, and then I'm like, okay, this isn't doing it for me. So I just want people to know it doesn't have to, it's not like you're just stuck with something once you try. It's just you're getting exposed to a lot of things. But like right now, my main North Star is that, going out and trying to shine that light and having the victory through other people's victories. But then there's a lot of fun stuff on the way, trying to have some fun.
Well, it sounds like you also help people too who may not necessarily be retired per se, but maybe they're having like a mid-career shift and wanting to find out what's next. So they might be more sort of dependent on a job per se or
Right.
figuring out the next thing. Can they also use this process essentially?
Absolutely. Yes. I would say, so when I started this, I was like, okay, this will be mostly for people that retire and they're wondering, what do I do now? But what it turned out, my biggest client pool are people that have just finished going through a divorce.
Mm.
And so, and I'm not a divorce coach, so it's not the process of the divorce, but like after the dust settles and I like, okay, my life was this, my identity was wrapped up in this, and now that is gone. And so I have to rebuild somehow. And so we use these steps to rebuild this new version that is because that other version, whether, it was voluntary or not, it is gone.
Um, Out of curiosity, kind of going a little bit off of that, I guess if it's okay to ask, what made you want to retire? What kind of went into that decision?
Honestly, I have an older brother and we're very competitive. And I said, I will retire before you retire. And so my life, that is how I lived it. I've been in constant competition with him and I won. So it was a goal to retire early, but I said I will beat him. And he's still got another year to go before he retires. But that's the real reason. I was in competition with my brother.
And did you kind of go about your career in knowing that you were going to retire early? That's kind of how you positioned it.
Yes, that was always the plan
Gotcha.
to retire early because going back to that endless summer, my brother and I used to talk about that. Like one day, endless summer, it'll be summer all the time. And even weather-wise, if you want it to be, you could just travel somewhere where it's summer there all the time
Mhm.
because you're not working. But then, there's still, so I did the official retirement, but then I still need to apply myself to do so. I still need that North Star. I
Mhm.
still need some kind of structure. So that's why I put together the systems because I was the first section of my life I was in the Air Force, the US Air Force, and that had a lot of structure and you know
Imagine.
exactly where you are, your spot in there. And then I went to oil and gas and I knew exactly there's structure, not the same as the military, but still I knew exactly where I was. And then after that, I found that if systems and structure really provide a lot of clarity and they make things work and it's much smoother than just everything's just up for grabs every single day. So when I put this together for myself, I said, I documented it because that's how I do things. And so using a military analogy, the making of the bed in the military, you all see in the movies, and everyone makes the bed the same way. And that happens because of the systems, the procedures, they make it so a genius or the opposite of a genius, everybody ends up with the same result. And so they break it down into simple steps. So what I try to do also is for myself and anyone I work with, let's break it down into steps that not only you could do, but you would just do.
Mhm.
Because anyone can just give you steps that you'd be like, well, I'm never going to do that. But let's make it so these are actually achievable, doable steps that you would say, okay, that's not that big of a leap. That's not a big deal.
Well, sometimes it's helpful to have a container, that just provides you a way, especially if you feel lost, then you need more of a container sometimes to help you have almost like bumpers so that you don't go everywhere.
Right. Yeah, I like that. The bumper is like in the bowling. Keep your ball in the lane.
Right.
Yes. It's moving you in a certain direction. You know you're making progress. And I know, like for me personally, I also need somebody to hold me accountable to say, where are you in this process? Did you do this? Because if nobody's checking, then maybe I'll say, well, I'll do this, but
Right.
maybe I'll go to learn how to make a pizza from scratch first, and then a couple of weeks pass or something. So, and also for myself with these steps, I like to, it's not like once I go through, then I'm just done forever. I revisit some of these to just kind of reinforce and make sure that everything is where I want it to be and see if any adjustments need to be made. So it's not like
Good to
it's
go
not a
forever.
right. Yes.
I was going to ask you after, a period of time or once you kind of reinvented yourself, then do you find that it's like cyclical, then it happens again, which it sounds like it does.
Yes, I'd say maybe around every 3 months because I noticed by just being aware that I say, am I kind of slipping off to the edges a little bit? And just to make sure that I guess, calibration, everything needs to be calibrated, like if you had a scale or something, just, just for maintenance. For maintenance, I just go through it again just to make sure that, okay, because also I'm in a different place. So 3 months, when I'm going through my crisis and then I do this, that is a version of me that was in this crisis. And now I've come to this place. I work with that for a little bit. And then 3 months later, I'm not the same person that I was when I started. So now I'll revisit it, but it's much easier to go back now because I'm not starting from scratch. Because when I'm meeting these new people as my new self, then maybe there's some new qualities or new habits that I want to add on. And if I'm just living it, then I might forget to add it in. So I have a little notes thing on my phone. And then so when there's something that I'm like, oh, I need to look more into this, I'll just put a little note down. And then so I can go back and look at it and say, oh, okay, maybe I want to add this, stretching routine in the mornings. That might be helpful. Let's try it. Once again, I don't have to keep it, but I can try it and see if it works for me, and I want that to be part of it. But it's a constant. I'm not telling your listeners that this is something that you have to do. Let's like an every day you have to go and revisit. But let's say, yeah, every 3 months or so, just feel like, okay, well, where are we now? How can we just make sure that everything is lined in? And it gets, once again, it's easier because you're not going the big change. You're just dialing in and calibrating as you go. And it's much more comfortable to do it because you've already made a lot of changes.
Right. So kind of tweaking it almost.
Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, if someone is maybe at a point where they feel lost, let's say, no matter what the transition is for them, or maybe they just feel lost and there's not really a transition going on, before maybe starting a process like that, what would be a piece of advice for someone who might be feeling or experiencing that?
Well, you can do, some people are really, really struggling just to make it through the day. And I'm not a therapist or a mental health expert. So, if there's a super crisis, please call somebody. But there's what I call a dignity scan, that if you have like a really tough day, that you need a reminder that you're still in there. And so for the dignity scan, I always like to have people, get a sheet of paper out and say, like, what is a skill that I have? And just so you don't have to name a whole bunch of stuff, just one thing. What is one skill that I have? And then how do I know? Write down how you know. And then, like, what is one person? Is there one person in the world that I care about? Just name one person. How do I know? Is there one person that cares about me? And there's, a lot of people, no one cares about me, but there's somebody at some point. Who is it that, name one person? And then how do you know? And then it can be like a value that I've kept. How do I know? And then you do this, a little dignity scan. And what that does is once you write these out, it's kind of like this little bridge that, okay, I have this skill. I know I have it because of this. And I know that there's a person that cares because of this. I care about someone because of this. A value that I've kept is this. And I know that because of this. And then it just gives you this little bit of this 1% extra hope. And that keeps that pilot on, light on, reminds you that you're in there. And then from there, you get that little bit of dignity to remember that you are worth rebuilding. And then from there, we can move on.
That's pretty cool. Like a quick sort of check-in and reminder of who you are on the inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are still there, and you are still worth rebuilding or building, constructing, whatever. There's something left, and we're going to take those pieces and we're going to make something magnificent from it.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom and advice in this area, for sharing, your protocol and just your own story about how you reinvented and the process of that. I think it's really helpful. If people want to find out more about you or want to find out more about that dignity scan, where can they find out more information?
They can go to resettheman.com, and women can go there too. I just needed a domain name, so resettheman.com. And there's a link to the dignity scan on there that it has all the prompts on there that you can take as well. And also, if you want to find me on LinkedIn, Nick Shelton, my smiling face is there. I pop right up, and I'm happy to connect and help out in any way that I can.
And I guess anything else you'd like to share or add that you would think is important that I didn't get to?
Oh, I always tell people show up in your life, show up at events, whatever. Like you don't have to show up and do stuff, just show up. That's the most important thing that I think that people always think in their minds. If they show up, wherever they're showing up, they have to show up and be the star. No, just show up, just be in the room and be present. That's it.
Be sure to check out resettheman.com, which is linked in the episode description, to learn more about Nick, his reinvention process, and the dignity scan. As an additional note, if you're a career pivoter or going through a life transition and you're interested in redefining or reframing your story, check out takeabeatcoaching.com to learn more about a one-on-one coaching program designed to help you tell your story confidently. Thanks for listening and take care.